Hello, everybody. I know we have a few minutes until we get started today, so we're going to let everybody kind of join in and get settled and get attached to audio if need be. But Sarah, you're the first one here, so welcome to you for joining our presentation here, and we'll get started fairly shortly.
Looks like Sarah's a freedom seeker, which is a good match for what we do.
Yeah, absolutely, especially for this chat that we're going to do, this panel discussion. So very cool. Sarah, what part of the world are you from? I know this is a global conference, so curious to see where you're currently located. I am, well, you'll hear a bit about our introductions here pretty soon, but I'm an expat from the States, Texas to be exact. But we'll get more into detail there. And then we have some Canadians here on the line with us as well, or a former Canadian and a current Canadian, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we got a large range of weather here today, I'm sure, that we're experiencing.
Oh, I don't know about you, but it's beautiful here today in Panama City. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. I don't think that anytime I check the weather network down there, it's the same every single day. So I don't know if that changes much.
Well, it's 33 in the day and 24 or 25 at night.
Yeah, we had about 4 degrees last night, and today's probably gonna be 16 during the day. It's kind of all over the place right now.
No goodness. See, I mean, I guess that's not terrible, but it's definitely not my ideal kind of climate.
I don't think it's anybody's ideal climate. 4 degrees and rain is not a super exciting place to be.
Yeah, all I know is that, I've heard about your weather fund over the last couple of months and your zero and minus and yeah, I'd say that you're probably feeling pretty warm.
Yeah, you don't hear me complain about it as much in July and August, but the rest of the year it's lots of whining.
Well, I have a solution for that, just so you know.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to suggest.
Yeah, hey everybody. I see you all probably moving over from the last presentation that was done by Adrian. So welcome to everybody. We're going to give everybody probably about 30 seconds or so here before we really get started. But I'm glad that you chose to join us today for this presentation about what the future of tiny home communities and living in tiny home communities will look like. And what we hope to implement into not only our communities that we design, but bringing the option for other places, other developers to actually have the same kind of certification in place for their communities. So I am going to go ahead and make some introductions here. My name is Ali Rodriguez. I am a U.S. expat from the great state of Texas and moved to the Central American region about 4 or so years ago, actually closer to 5 at this point. It seems to fly pretty quickly. I came as a tourist and have become now a resident of Belize and am currently living in Panama City, Panama. So my journey brought me here to the region on a whim, but really became home to me quite quickly. And through my experience and my time in Belize, I met the 2 guys here on your screen, the co-founders of Eco Villages, Patrick and Spencer Hiebert. And now I am pleasantly happy to say that we all work together. We're all colleagues now, which is really fun. So Patrick, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and we'll get going here.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ellie. And it's good to see a lot of people on the call today. And thanks to Jason and Zach for having us on and presenting here. And great guys, and we love working with them and around them and what they're doing and promoting tiny home communities around. Mostly, right for us now, it's around Latin America, but we're expanding in different areas. My name is Patrick. I'm a Canadian originally. Been living in Central America for around 15 years or so, almost now. My wife and I have homes in a few different countries in residency and a few different countries down here. And just a quick background on the story. I was a software guy in Canada. I lived in Vancouver Island, where Spencer and I did a lot of sailing, and ultimately eventually moved onto a boat. And a boat is kind of the ultimate tiny home. I think if they're extremely efficiently built with efficient uses of space, and that's where we kind of fell in love with tiny home living, and wanted to take that and bring that to life in different communities on land. And we ended up really liking the Central American region, Latin America, and have now over the last number of years designed quite a few different communities. I don't know, 15 or maybe more communities in this region, and all the communities have tiny home neighborhoods within them, and so we've really become kind of experts in the area of designing tiny homes, and we're going to talk about some interesting things coming up in the future of tiny home communities.
Awesome. Perfect. And there, I don't know if he's on your left or right, Patrick, but to the left of you on my screen is Spencer. Spencer is your son. And so Spencer, tell us a little bit about your journey and what brought you into designing tiny homes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Allie. Like my dad said, grew up sailing. I sailed with my dad originally, and then ended up moving on to my own sailboat when I moved out, particularly the Catalina 30. If you are a sailor, you've probably heard of that boat. It's a world-renowned model, the most sold sailboat ever. So it's very popular, and for a good reason. They're extremely efficiently designed. And that really inspired a lot of what we do today. Not just the internal design of the boat, the cabin, but the just how boats operate in general, being way more self-sustained, self-sufficient. Between solar, water desalination, all the different things that a sailboat can provide. We really just wanted to bring the benefits of that onto the land, and we thought there's no reason not to. And particularly with tiny homes, small space and the efficient design, and kind of becoming more minimalist in that sense. It all kind of meshed together. I ended up moving down. I've spent a lot of time in Central America, growing up through my childhood, a lot of time in Nicaragua, and it's kind of considered a second home. I have a lot of good friends there. Continue to go down to Central America often these days, and I will definitely continue to in the future if I can convince the girlfriend. Maybe we'll do 6 months here, 6 months there, kind of thing, because I definitely want to spend more time, especially in the cold months down there. But I love Central America. I love the region, the people, and everything. So I actually moved down there with my girlfriend for a while, but then COVID hit. All kinds of issues with that happened, not knowing what was going to happen with the world. But then we started really focusing on that kind of transition into our focus more into these sustainable tiny home communities because of the nature of COVID and things like transportation, the economy, everything kind of being up in the air. Nobody knows what's going on. That was kind of the catalyst to take it to the next level. So we designed some tiny homes. They were successful, and we're continuing to do tiny home communities throughout Central America. So that's a little background on me and how kind of it all got started there.
Yeah, perfect. And so something that you mentioned here, and the reason, I guess one of the biggest reasons, the team had decided to look into the future of tiny home living, tiny home communities, is this world issue of COVID. And it's really made us pivot and think about how we're living as far as waste and how we could do better in ways that we hadn't realized we needed to before. And we're still seeing some effects from that, as well as some other things that are happening globally. And of course, we're not here to get into any of the politics, but again, it makes you have to rethink what you're doing and what the plan is to go forward. So before we get too far into the meat of this presentation, there are 4 pillars of the Eco Villages concept, or the Eco Villages as a company, and what those pillars are So tell us a little bit, either one of you can pick this one up. You're in the hot seat because we didn't talk about this before, but either one of you can pick it up here and tell us what those 4 pillars are, because I think it really alludes to what we are going to be talking about for the next 45 minutes or so.
Sure, I can start. I mean, obviously, we have all our communities that we develop, we do base around 4 pillars, and they each have a story. And they're one thing to mention. I don't know if the video in the background is playing or not. It seems to be on this page. I'm not sure if that's supposed to be or not. But
yeah, no, we have it paused for now, but we'll start it here in a minute.
Sure, we didn't have a technical glitch or something. Anyway, so I mean, one of the main founding pillars of our communities is minimalism, and that it's obvious when we're talking about tiny homes. We want to make all our communities and the homes within them have an efficient use of space. Another one is what we call eco-sensible. We talk a lot about eco-friendliness, but it has to be done in a practical way. We do a lot of things, obviously, with solar power and that, but all those things in our mind really need to not only be kind of a feel-good moment, but also a practical moment, like it saves you money. And if you can power your home with solar or wind or hydroelectric power or whatever, that you're not only doing something good for the environment, but you're also saving yourself money. And it's nice to not have a power bill every month, right? So that's something that will sustain, because there's direct benefits financially out of it as well. So we've coined the term eco-sensible to make it, we use as many eco-friendly type of concepts as we can within the realm of not being kind of fanatic about it. One of the main ones these days, one of the pillars that we've always had, but is really probably the driving force in a lot of our communities these days, is sustainability. And we're going to talk about that more going as we kind of announce our little reveal that we're going to have here. But sustainability for people is a big thing these days in terms of wanting to be less reliant on corporations or government, and especially you mentioned COVID earlier. Regardless of how you feel about the whole pandemic, I think everybody has different feelings on it, but a lot of people feel like there was governments didn't handle it very well, and so the lockdowns and mandates and things like that became issues, and so people really wanted to look at different communities that fit their mindset, but also are sustainable within themselves. And then one of the final ones that we have is freedom, and freedom means different things to different people, but really freedom-oriented communities where and I'm going to leave that one because we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. But those are the pillars that we build our communities on.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, just before we do this big reveal, because I am going to ask you who wants to be first here in a couple of seconds, but before we get to that, we've alluded to the idea that we are designers of these communities, and we do work with several different developers. So Spencer, tell us really if people are going out there on their own and choosing developers to work with or to build homes for them, what piece of advice would you give them when they're making that decision?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. In the region of Central America, I've asked around a lot for people that live there and have worked with developers or builders, because it's very difficult to find really solid builders in that region, right? So we're lucky enough to have been in the region for a long time, so we have a lot of connections down there, and we have relationships with good developers that we trust. But if you're going in blind, definitely don't rush that process. Spend some time maybe renting first, and ask locals, find people that know what they're doing, because there's a lot of builders there's a lot of mentality of, oh yeah, I can do that, and then oftentimes it's not the reality. So yeah, just definitely spend a little more time. Just come to the region. Nicaragua is one of my favorite places on the planet. So head down there, spend some time there. You'll probably fall in love with it.
Absolutely.
And just to add to that, Ellie, I think, for everybody on the call here, just to explain that, we are a designer developer of communities, tiny home communities in this Latin American region. So we're really talking to you about, opportunities for people that are looking for, being a digital nomad, another place to live, maybe having a plan B home in another location, a vacation home, various different things. We're not a tiny home builder in North America. If you're living in Oklahoma or something, we're not the company to come to talk to you about building a home. We design many different models of tiny homes within the communities that we design. So just for clarity for people that we aren't the people that are going to come and build your tiny home for you, and what we will build your tiny home for you inside of our communities.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a great clarification there. And just so you guys, just for my personal interest, if you want to drop over there in the comment section where you're joining us from, and if you're looking at tiny home communities outside of your current home country, let us know that. I'm just, I see Jill saying that she assumes we work in warm climates. We do. We do. We are in Belize, Nicaragua, Panama, Costa Rica, Honduras, and soon to be some others. So kind of exciting that you picked up on that, Jill. We are quite warm here in the area. But so let's go ahead and do this big reveal. I'm really excited for this. Everybody loves to be first, right? And so the idea of having a community of owners, of neighbors that are first minded, but also having a community backed by the developers, by the designers to really deliver a first community is what we're talking about here today. And this is something that I know, Patrick, you and Spencer have been talking about, really moving, I guess, taking the next step of what these tiny home communities are going to look like. So you alluded to the pillar of freedom in your company. And Spencer, tell me what is freedom to you? What does that mean? And why is that something that you want to make sure is implemented in these communities?
Yeah, for sure. I think freedom, for me, it's kind of funny the word freedom has been kind of hijacked by politics recently as a way to kind of combat people and turn people against each other. But ultimately, I think we all really do want to fight for the kind of the rudimental form of freedom, which is just free will and freedom of choice. And that's really taking it back to that before all the politics. I think that's really what we're trying to provide is people with options, people with choices. You can live in one of our communities and you can be a part of the community. You can free yourself financially, be a part of the sustainable orchards and gardens and stuff, really be embedded in that community. Or you can live more in solitude if you're less, of a people person. And you have that choice. You don't have to choose one or the other. Trying to design communities in ways that work for both people, both groups of people, but also freedom in the sense of like Plan B homes, maybe. So for me as a Canadian, politics up here can get a little interesting sometimes, and some people feel like they've been kind of isolated and targeted, and so just giving people the option, a much more affordable option. Adrian, the speaker before us, spoke on this a lot, but and I really appreciate what he's doing here in Canada. But the housing market is insane here right now, and so providing a financial choice for people to invest somewhere elsewhere that can still provide returns for them, that financial freedom, also the plan B of being able to go down there and escape if no matter where you're from, not just Canada, but anywhere in the world, to be able to have a plan B option home for you and your family to escape to if you feel that's necessary, or just to relax and live a more relaxed lifestyle in a tropical environment. That's pretty freeing feeling as well. But yeah, just really the rudimental kind of form of freedom, just back to the basics, giving people free will and the option to choose what they want to do with their life.
Right. Yeah. And something you mentioned was, this feeling of freedom. And just, I remember, going back and forth when I was going through the residency process in Belize, when we had to go back to the States for tying up loose ends and things like that. I never felt more stress-free than when I got back on Belizean ground. Like it's like an automatic just weight of relief. You just feel at ease. And it's very interesting feeling, especially going from the home that I knew for more than 30 years into this place that I hadn't lived in for, at that point, about 6 months, and just feeling freer, I guess you could say. And so, Patrick, I know that, obviously with Freedom being a pillar of the company, that you've already gotten part of that integrated into the current communities. But how are you taking that a step further? I mean, how are you planning to really provide this kind of climate for neighbors and communities and the people that live there?
Sure, Ellie. I mean, I think what I wanted to, no pun intended, but I wanted to explain a little bit more about what the first community certification is. Not all developers are created equal. When somebody is buying a property in Central America, for instance, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can trust these people, or what are they really, are they really building sustainable communities, really building freedom-oriented communities, economic independence, and all these things that people are really looking for in a community. There's no guarantee or even kind of certification or standard. It's a bit Wild West, right? So we at Eco Villages decided, it needs the first acronym, as you can see, sort of stands for the words underneath the letters there. But it's kind of like in the environmental world where you have the LEED standard, right? If you build a high-rise building in a city and it's LEED certified, you know that it's got this, that, and it's passed at different tiered levels, like they have a platinum and gold and that different thing. And so you can, if you're familiar with LEED and that sort of stuff, you can really think of that as what we're defining now, because we've had a lot of experience in building communities over a long period of time, and we are very passionate about the pillars of the story of each community. The first certification really is not just for our communities, but other developers around the region or around the world can say, okay, I'd like to be first certified, and then they can apply for that. And once they're certified as a first community, that they've been checked out by experts in the different regions. And I make no bones about it. I'm a libertarian. I don't like over governmental control on things, and that's a lot where the freedom side comes in. To me, it's just a lot of different meanings to freedom, but less bureaucracy. I wasn't a big fan of mandates and on different things. I'm still not, and I probably never will be. I think for people that are passionate about having that kind of freedom, obviously freedom of speech. I don't like cancel culture. I don't like censorship and all sorts of things that are very politically divisive right now. We try to make our communities, and I think Spence alluded to a little earlier, in the design of them, we have kind of communal areas where people are almost not forced, but you get to know your neighbor. There's the kind of the central spaces, sometimes we call like the campfire spaces, where people are just naturally, maybe they go to watch sunsets over the ocean or whatever, sit on the beach and roast hot dogs or something, and different types of things that we try to do, and it just creates a more community oriented feeling rather than a lot of the world's divisiveness these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great place for me to just jump in after we've now talked about this first acronym and go ahead and let the video run. So we do have a video here that's going to just kind of run in the background. It isn't really going to go with our speaking points. It's just a place for you to get a look at some of the communities that we have designed up until this point. You can see other members of our team in the pictures of us being in the countries where we work, and go have fun. The world is your playground, so go have fun. So I'm just going to go ahead and let that run. And you guys are up for, we have more questions for you here. And the next one we're going to talk about is the independent economy. And so, Patrick, how can somebody be independent, or how can a community have an independent economy in an already established economy in whatever country they're in?
Well, we're very bullish on cryptocurrencies to start out with. I mean, I think that the DeFi, the decentralized finance of that whole world, it goes right along with the freedom and the resilience and the sustainability and transparency pieces that we're going to talk about more. But really, for us, when we talk about independence, a lot of it is, a lot of them are tied together in terms of sustainability and independence are very closely related. So is resiliency. But from an independent standpoint, a lot of people don't want to be relying on corporations and governments, and if all of a sudden there's food shortages and things like that, that kind of independence is important as well. On this, we really are focusing on economic independence here. So, for instance, all the communities that are going to be first oriented or first certified will allow Bitcoin, for instance, to be the currency that you're purchasing. If you go to the restaurant in the community, you can buy your dinner in Bitcoin or other cryptos that are accepted. And to us, that not having an economy that's based on the Fed controlling it or some sort of central bank controlling it is an important thing. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that under transparency as well.
Yep, absolutely. And so kind of feeding off of that, Spencer, would you say that there's a large demand for an economy like this, an independent economy? Is that really something that people are out looking for?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think there is. Well, I think it's kind of been proven as in the last couple of years, particularly that governments are possibly not capable of managing money. Here in Canada, it's definitely proven with inflation rates, with again, jumping back to what Adrian was saying about the housing market is just completely unsustainable right now. There's a lot of factors that play into that. But a lot of it is mismanagement of money and allowing certain practices to take place that drive up inflation rates and housing pricing. So it's quite clear that a lot of governments around the world struggle with managing money. Many countries have all but collapsed just based on that. So and the popularity of cryptos is not something that's going to die anytime soon. Based on that, people are losing faith in centralized currencies, I don't see it being something that's going to change. A lot of people thought Bitcoin and everything was just going to come and go. It's showing that it can maintain, and it's only, in my opinion, going to get cryptos in general are only going to get stronger. So this concept of communities not being reliant on the government outside of them, whether or not they fail to do their job, is a very powerful concept.
Yeah, and so you're not just talking about having crypto, not run communities, but having communities that are operating off of crypto. But something that you mentioned earlier, Patrick, was that can be decided by the community. What does that economy look like within the community? And I'm not sure if you had that slated for a different part of this discussion, but I just want to make it clear that it's not necessarily just going to be a crypto type atmosphere. It can be a mix of whatever the economy or that community deems it to be. Is that accurate in saying?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're not saying that fiat currency can't be used. You buy your home. Any one of the communities that we have right now, you can buy your home, obviously, in U.S. dollars or Canadian dollar equivalent or euros or whatever, but also can buy them in Bitcoin or Solana or any of the the top cryptos out there. But this is really moving more towards inside the community. Much like Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, and had kind of promoted the use of Bitcoin to this point where El Salvador adopted it as a currency. We're talking about the same sort of thing on a grassroots level in these micro communities, which we think will also then be promoting the use of crypto in bigger ways. We're aware of many countries right now that are looking very seriously at adopting cryptocurrency, and we could spend a lot of time on this subject, but it really again it kind of really helps with independence of the community, and I can touch on, like, it's not just the currency, it's things like NFTs, which represent smart contracts, and there's all sorts of things you can do there. I mean, I'll touch on when, one of the T in the first is talking about transparency. So we're getting there a little bit ahead of time, but good timing on the slide to remind everybody what it is.
Yeah.
But we're looking at the HOAs. Nobody likes HOAs, like homeowner associations, right? Whether you live in a high-rise apartment building or in any kind of community, because what ends up happening is you elect a president or a board for your HOA, and they ultimately make decisions that you're not crazy about, and you really feel not in control in any way, and it doesn't feel fair. So I think, where we can really make a difference on that on the transparency side is we're looking at using DAOs, which I'm not sure if people are familiar with, but they're decentralized autonomous organizations. Basically, without going into too much of the weeds, it allows you to vote as a community on every single thing in your HOA. HOA doesn't need a president anymore. If you decide you want to put a fence around the community to make it, more private or something, well, that's not the developer's choice anymore. It's the choice of the DAO, and the people get to vote on that. And there's lots of different ways that can work, but I think that's very powerful because it really puts the strength of power back in the people's hands within the community, kind of like a lot of countries were formed, like the U.S. Constitution in the first place, right? Which has kind of moved away from that. I'm excited about the different things that are happening in the world right now in the crypto space, the NFT space, the DAOs, to really make kind of paradigm shifting changes in the way communities operate and making everybody, feel that things are much more transparent and fair. So I'm excited about that. Sorry for jumping ahead to the T.
You really put the end at the beginning here, but that's okay. And I want to say that, Nino, I see your question there. And even though I was hoping to save Q&A for the end, I think this is a really applicable place to answer it. So Patrick and Spencer, he's asking, when attempting to be green and sustainable, how are you able to justify all the fossil fuel expended in the mining process? And I know that's something that you've explored solutions to. So can you talk to us a little bit about what those are quickly? At least address that.
I'll let you do it, Spence, but just let me jump in and say we're not using fossil fuels for that. I mean, on a real quick way, when we pre-designed the Bitcoin Beach community that we were working on, even the exercise equipment there was an outdoor exercise equipment, and if you're running on a treadmill, that generated a little bit of power that contributed to the solar power and wind power that would be mining Bitcoin within that community. And we're not really that focused on the mining side of it, so to speak, as much as we are the use of it. But there's a lot of ways that, if you really look into the in-depth ways of Bitcoin in particular is mined, we could go on and on about the environmental side of that, but, a lot of that is, hydropower or unused power from energy from natural gas plants and things like that. So, we're looking at a lot of different ways to, and I don't feel like we have to justify it because we're not basing our mining on fossil fuels.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's where I was going to go with it as well, and just to add to that a little bit, I mean, we're not for those massive factories out in the middle of nowhere that are tied to grid power and just consuming tons of power to mine cryptos. That's not something we appreciate or are for in any way. Just when we do it ourselves, and if you're going to do it on a personal level, even within our community, if you had one of our homes, for example, one of the off-grid homes in the part of the region of the world we live in, or have our communities in, there's a lot of sun, and so that mining would be done by solar power. So yeah, we can't speak for all crypto, but we know when we're involved with it, it's not coming from fossil fuels. Not entirely, at least.
Sorry, on that point, Spencer, I think one of the reasons eco-villages chose to locate into tropical regions like around the equator basically is Spencer's in Vancouver Island right now in Canada. I'm in Panama City, and we can make a solar system in Panama City that generates so much power, or in this region, not just Panama City, in Latin America that generates so much power. To get that same kind of power up in a rainy climate and up further north, you have to have these massive systems. So, one of the reasons we wanted to prove that, our off-grid communities, for instance, would be successful is to pick a place where that's easy to do, which is down here in the, between the solstices, basically. So.
Yeah, and it's just way more practical here. I mean, the return on a solar system here is something like 3 years, or in down south rather, not where I am currently, but in Central America, is about 3 years, and where I am here in British Columbia, is probably closer to 15. Now I know back when I looked some years ago, it was around 20-year return. So it just wasn't practical to do solar up here. So down in Central America, it is very practical, and you can generate a lot of power with solar in that part of the world. So, yeah.
Perfect. I know we took a really deep dive into that letter I there, but really great questions and something to be aware of and mindful of for sure, So we've talked about F for freedom. We've talked about I, the independent economy concept. The next letter is R, which is resiliency or resilient. Another good timing slide here. But so what comes to mind when you hear the word resilient? And you guys that are here on the line with us too, you can drop this in the comment section. But Patrick, Spencer, what comes to mind? What image comes to mind when you think of the word resilient?
I think of fortitude and strength. A community that's able to kind of withstand by itself. It doesn't need to be reliant on outside forces. I look at both kind of a layer of physical strength too. We want to design communities that will last as well and will be literally resilient to a lot of things. So, another aspect that we get questioned on sometimes, and it's a totally fair question, but it's people notice some of the homes, not every home, but some of the communities we design are concrete homes. Why do that over a more sustainable, renewable resource? But again, that's an argument that could be had for a long time that we don't have time to get into right now. And I don't even have a definitive answer on that. But what I can say is that practicality aspect comes into it. People that are looking for these homes, they want to know that they're going to last a long time, and all the transportation and the fossil fuels that are burned in the process of homes that are using more renewable resources that need a lot more work to be done over the years. Maintenance, replacement, all that ends up burning more energy as well. So it could be argued that they aren't any more efficient or better for the planet. I'm not going to make that statement for sure, but I do know when some of the construction methods we look into are right now we're in conversation with some builders in the region to do some ICF formed concrete, and so an ICF form is essentially foam concrete, so it's a sandwich of concrete with insulation in between. We're looking at their methods are to pour them in a solid form and then transport those walls, but essentially they would be one really solid, very strong wall that would also have an extremely high R value. So these homes would last hundreds of years. And to me, that's really important, because another part of being eco-friendly and efficient is also making things that will last for a very long time, and generations can reuse them over and over and over again. And you don't have to constantly, stick frame construction here in Canada, a lot of times houses rot out if they're not maintained, constantly having their roofs redone and everything. That's not really an efficient process either, right? So it could be argued from both sides. I'm not saying definitively that concrete is better for the planet, but from a practical perspective, you have to look at it too. But I know I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but the question is about resiliency, and that's I think fortitude, a strong community, and a strong sense of community from more of a spiritual level as well. Again, Adrian, I'm reverting back to what he was talking about again, but he does the same thing. We noticed we do the same thing with our parking. We when we're designing community, we disconnect the parking right from the house, because we had a conversation with him the other day, and he was saying that people just drive, here in Canada, people just drive up either into their garage or just right up to their door, go into their house, and then there's no conversation within the community. There's no talking to your neighbors and stuff. And we do that same thing, disconnecting, not in an inconvenient way, but just enough so you might have to pass some neighbors to have a conversation, and having a stronger community as well, a more resilient community in that sense as well, is important to us.
To me, the resiliency is really adaptability of the community too, right? In the first certification, you'll have to have a plan to handle economic, environmental, political changes that surround you, so that your community is resilient. And that can be a lot of different things. I think it can mean things like having your own health care, like a clinic within the community, having your own education, school, so that it goes back to independence and sustainability, of course, too. But to me, if it can mean on a lot of layers. We were talking about fossil fuels. If the price of fossil fuels goes way up, well, these communities are more resilient, because if you're creating power off of alternative energy or solar, wind, whatever it is, you're creating, you're growing your own food, you're extracting your own water, water well, and all those things make your community more resilient. And even on the educational side, I think we would encourage, people to educate their families, like how to change a tire, or, how to fix a radio, and, how to make your food last from one harvest to the next harvest, right? All those sort of things that, people have kind of forgotten in some ways along the way, and education is really not practical in a lot of ways. So to me, the resiliency kind of feature has a lot of different components to it. But on the point you're making, Spence, on the strength and eco-friendliness of the homes, I'll argue all day long with somebody that a home that lasts 500 years made out of concrete and doesn't require maintenance is far more eco-friendly than a home that lasts 20 years and requires all sorts of maintenance in between. So there's, sometimes people get to be too purist about things without a practical side. And really, we try to be, like I said earlier, eco-sensible, not eco-fanatic. We try to put in the same sort of thought pattern into everything we do. It's got to be practical. It's got to work for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a pretty well-rounded vision of what resiliency is for you, and how you plan to implement those into these first communities. So I think that was a really good explanation there. And we had some great feedback in the comments as well about resiliency and how people see that in their lives. So thank you guys for sharing that with us. I do see we have about 20 minutes left, and I do want to get to the giveaways that you see here on the screen there. We are going to be giving away some NFTs, and at the end here, Patrick's going to explain it to you when we do that giveaway. But I just wanted you to know, so in about 20 minutes, we'll be doing that drawing for those free NFTs. So self-sustainable. This is a huge topic of discussion for a lot of people right now. And, just me being somewhat removed from what's going on in North America, obviously I have friends on Facebook that, are living in Florida and other places that are really experiencing shortage of food and housing and things like that that's happening right now. And just the other day I was, kind of conversing with a friend, and he mentioned that, his grocery bill has gone up over 12% in the last month, wherein rent has gone up 14% since the beginning of the year. And so I know there's a lot of people that are kind of at a position where they are, like we mentioned at the beginning, having to rethink what's important to them and making tough decisions about their future and their family's futures and things like that. So people need a solution. So how is this first certification, or how is this ideal of self-sustainability, number one, going to be implemented? And number two, what systems are there for folks that are looking at already established eco-villages communities?
Well, I think all our communities put sustainability at the forefront. And for us, Sustainability has always been an important piece of the community construction. And, now we're moving into even, taking that to the next level where the communities that we're designing right now, one here in Panama, one in Nicaragua, one in Costa Rica, they are going to have what we're calling lifestyle farms as part of the community. And for people that are looking for anywhere from maybe half an acre to 2 or 3 acres of space to grow food, that's a intriguing option for people. You're basically being purely self-sustaining because you're growing your own food. Maybe you have some chickens and they're laying eggs and all the different things that you want to do, like a small farm. Now, it doesn't mean everybody in the community has to be a farmer, right? I mean, there's tiny home communities that are quite dense with people in it. Our communities have condominiums and estate homes and all sorts of. Every community isn't homogenous, right? It's a lot of different things within it. But we're really incorporating. We've always incorporated the community orchards and community gardens so that the community itself was self-sustaining. But as part of the first certification and part of the whole resiliency, we want the community. If everything disappeared outside the community, it would still be self-sustaining. And and again, it goes back to the kind of the 3 things, well, 4 things if you include shelter, but food, water, and energy, right? And if you can create those 3 things, obviously your home is your shelter, but if you can create those 4 things within your community, then you're going to be sustainable, and no matter what happens outside of that.
Yeah, I think I might have dropped off for a second there, but I believe I'm back live again. For me, the sustainability aspect really jumps back to the boat again. I'm pretty sure if you gave me a sailboat, a solar panel, a water desalinator, and a fishing rod, I'm pretty sure I could make it till I was 80 out on a sailboat. And I think that's a super cool thing to be able to, be self-sufficient in that way. And so we really want to implement that in our communities we have, and going forward even to another level, to have the communities, like my dad said, if everything hits the fan, the communities will still be fine. But also in the meantime, when it hasn't hit the fan, the communities can operate at a normal level too, and people don't have to be full-time homesteaders, right? You can live a normal life, go to the city, watch a movie, all that stuff as well. But just to have that fallback for, if it does get ugly. I mean, we've seen even in British Columbia here, where infrastructure and everything is so good, between natural disasters and COVID-related things, the transportation really started to fall apart here, and like transportation of goods, and it drove prices up. Grocery stores were starting to get emptied for a while. I mean, it all recovered, but I mean, that was just one time where in a country that runs as smoothly as Canada, if that can happen, it can really probably happen anywhere. So it was a series of unfortunate events that led grocery stores to start running out of meats and things, and fuel prices to just start skyrocketing and everything. And yeah, we want to design our communities in a way that they can be essentially unaffected by those things.
Well, and the supply chain issues that have happened, the inflation issues that have happened, it's not theoretical anymore, right? It's happening where you're actually seeing European, North American, Australian grocery stores with less food than they would like to have in them, even if not empty. So it's kind of hitting home. I think it's been the last couple of years have for sure been an awakening for people in a lot of ways. And for Spencer and I, it was interesting because it was a challenge and a personal challenge to ourselves. We go out on the boat for weeks or months at a time, and you're out on the ocean. You don't get a long extension cord plugged back to the shoreline, so you get to generate your own power and you conserve your own power. You generate your own water and conserve it because you're not unlimited in the amount that you can generate. But also on the food side, like we joke about, we would have a cabinet full of pork and beans in the corner that was our rescue cabinet in case we weren't catching fish or but it was interesting because like there's things like sea asparagus or whatever. That's a thing, right? It's actually pretty good, and you could harvest that on the ocean, and so we would challenge ourselves to see how long we could go to without without any other source of food. And it became kind of a way of life. And again, we wanted to apply that to our eco villages communities, which we're doing. And it's almost gone from a fun challenge to maybe it's going to be a necessity one day. So it's probably a good thing that we're doing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I see your questions, guys, here on the screen. And so we'll get to those here, hopefully at the end of the presentation. But you can always reach out to us at questions@ecovillages.life, and we can definitely answer them more specifically for you if we don't make it to the Q&A portion. We've gone a little longer on some topics because I guess the passion and just the interest hearing more about those certain topics were important to you guys. So that's what this is about, right? This is about a live presentation where you can ask the questions and it is interactive. So the last letter in first is T. And Patrick, you did do a very good job of explaining this earlier, but T for transparency. And so Spencer, I want to give you a shot here and let you explain what transparency means in a community. I mean, we're not building glass houses, but there should be a level of transparency when you're depending on your neighbors. So talk to me about what that means for these communities and where you see it going for the future.
Yeah, no, actually the plan is we are going to be building all the houses out of glass because we believe in that as a community so much. You want to be able to see your neighbor all the time. No, but of course, no,
it's more my neighbor when they're watching me shower.
Yeah, I'm not even going to get into that. No, it's more about the operations of the community, essentially. Stepping away from that standard HOA practice that it might be a bit blurry as to the decisions that are being made, and people might not feel like they have a solid vote and things. And stepping to more of a decentralized version of that, where everybody has a say. It's very transparent of the decisions that are being made within the community, and it's up to the people that live within that community to make those decisions. I know my dad knows more about the DAO and how that system works. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that. But.
Yeah, we talked about that a little, so I won't belabor it. But there's other things that are transparent within a community. Like I said earlier, not all developers are created equal, right? So one thing that I've seen in communities where the developer-owned businesses have a different playing field or rules than a resident that moves into the community and starts a business. That shouldn't be, right? That should all be a level playing field. So that's another area where everybody's paying the same fees or taxes or whatever it is, right? And that's all transparent. And again, I'm a big fan of NFTs and that and how and DAOs and how they can be used to make fairness within the community. So I know we're short on time, but we could talk a lot about that too. And I think we're talking a little bit about NFTs as we do our giveaways. So.
Yep. And that's the perfect segue here. So tell us, we've gone through the certification. We're talking about this is the future of tiny home living, tiny home communities. And something I did see that came through the chat was, feeling like you're living in a bubble because you have so much self-sustainability within the community. Can you just quickly address that and that concept of feeling like you're, I guess, in a commune essentially, but that's really not what the goal is of these communities, right?
Yeah.
Well, kind of fill that one out real quick. I'll give you about 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I mean, that's a really important aspect of our communities as well is not, I mean, that jumps back to the freedom thing really, is not driving people into a bubble that they have to, be a part of the community, working on the community orchards and stuff all the time. Just, it's really more of an optional thing. We want to provide that option for, if external circumstances cause you to need that, or if you just want to do that to reduce your cost of living, you can either do that in your own tiny home within our community and have your gray water recycling system, for example, help water your gardens, reduce your cost of living, and all, on a personal level, you can do that on a communal level where you have, you're a part of the community orchards and gardens and helping, more of that homestead style, or you can have neither and just live completely standard, but it's really important to us that you have those options. We don't want to, focus in on one specific style of living. I think the modern lifestyle, you should be able to have those choices. And yeah, that jumps back to the freedom thing, just having that choice.
Well, and the other thing I think I'd throw in there too is all of our communities, we have a foundation called Help Them Help Themselves. And over the decades now, all of our communities have been very much, contributing to that. And usually what that means is it's helping in the area around the communities too. So you're very involved. It's not like, people just avoid each other from, if you're not living in the community, sorry, we don't talk to you. It's actually the polar opposite. It's, we do a lot of things. We've built, clinics and schools and everything from, we do a lot of medical brigades and dental brigades for people in the communities. We save giant sea turtles, do spay and neuter clinics for the local animals and all sorts of different things that the community is usually involved in the wider sense of community. So it's certainly not a bubble. None of the communities feel like a bubble at all. They're actually very involved in the area around them. And like Spence said, it's freedom within your community to do whatever you want. You don't have to follow the, certain, like it's not a cult.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, guys, we have about 6 minutes left, and I definitely want to get to these giveaways. And just for folks on the line that don't know what an NFT is, 10 seconds. tell us can you do it in 10 seconds? Here's the real hot seat.
That's for Patrick. That's the speed round.
NFT stands for non-fungible token, and nobody uses the word fungible typically in English, but really what fungible is kind of like tradable, not unique. If I have a dollar bill in my pocket, you have a dollar bill in your pocket, that's fungible. We can exchange them and it really means nothing. Non-fungible just means more unique. But what an NFT is, a non-fungible token is really a contract, what people refer to as a smart contract on the blockchain. And by blockchain, that's just a bunch of computers around the world making sure that nobody's cheating, right? And it's not, there's no centralized force, there's no Fed, there's no nothing that controls it. In the case of Bitcoin, there's around 13,000 right now computers around the world that if I put an NFT contract onto there, it'll and somebody tries to change it, it's immutable. It's not changeable because if one changes or 15 change, the other 13,000 are saying no, that's not allowed. So it's a very secure, and we use a chain that's very fast and very inexpensive. So it's a secure way to do voting or contract storage or whatever you want to do with it. And I think without going into depth, 5 to 10 years from now, we're going to look back on NFTs like we were looking back on internet now, where, in 1990, somebody would say, oh, the internet, nobody's ever going to use that, right? Now it's pervasive everywhere. So I think you're going to see a lot of more smart contracts on the blockchains and around crypto.
Yeah. And Beth, just quickly, NFTs are not a currency. They just use the same technology, the same blockchain as cryptos use. Cryptos are more of a currency, but they're more fungible. Whereas NFTs are using that same technology, but they can be digital art is the big example, but it can go a lot more into depth than that, as like contracts and things can be exchanged on that same platform. And it's extremely secure because there's so many computers around the world monitoring the transactions to make sure that there's no funny business happening, and the federal governments can't be involved with it, so they can't mess around with what you have.
Yeah, so. And I saw a really good question that came through from Sharon here, and the idea of NFTs, a lot of people are using them for different things right now, and one of the things that one of our sister companies, Maven, is doing right now is actually real estate transactions using NFTs. So you can actually use them for multiple different purposes, but definitely more than we can get into.
Yeah, we don't have time right now.
4 minutes, but I did want to throw that out there. That is another one of those future of NFTs, future of tiny home living and ownership and things like that. So, but here we are at the last 3 minutes. So we're going to have to be quick, you guys, to get these 6 NFTs given away. And if you don't know what an NFT is, and you aren't sure what to do with it, if you do win, we are happy to get on the phone and walk you through it and all of that, and make you comfortable. So here we go. These are for you guys. Drop your answer in the comment section. The first person to respond correctly to each question will be the winner of those NFTs. So first one, what region does Eco Villages currently have communities? Where are we currently building and designing these homes? Juan, you are the winner. Juan is the winner. Very good. I'm going to write these down. Number 2, what does the I in FIRST stand for? What does the I in FIRST stand for? Jill, you are the winner on that one. Nicely done. Beth, you're coming in second. Girl, get fingers go faster. What does the S in FIRST stand for? The S in FIRST. Oh, that one was
Dimitri. Oh, no, that's Dimitri. Yeah.
Good job, Dimitri. You are the next winner. What is a DAO? Next question. What is a DAO?
That's a tough one.
It's spelled DAO.
Oh, very nice. Very nice, Dimitri. Dimitri, you got that one as well.
And Michelle helped finish it, though, so maybe they'll have to
Michelle
split
did
that
help,
NFT.
so I think Michelle will let you be the winner as well on that one. That was a hard question, you guys. You've been listening. I love it.
I'm just glad somebody knows. I'm excited.
Who is the better sailor, Patrick or Spencer?
Oh, I know the answer to that. One.
Oh, man.
Juan got it.
Oh, I don't know. You guys call it. Who's the winner of that one?
It's got to be Juan.
I'm going to say Ellie.
I'm the winner here. We're all winners, right? Thank you. I love it. Well, Juan, you won. So we're going to let Jill be the winner of that one. Good job, Jill. And last one here. What does the F in FIRST stand for? What does the F? Yep. Juan and Michelle, y'all are stars today, but Ernest, you're the winner for that one. So you guys will get in touch with you via Jason and Zach to get you all signed up and started for these. So thank you guys for joining us today. Any final words? You have like 5 seconds each. Go.
I don't know if we explained what the NFTs they won are, but you'll have to send us a message and we can explain that. Yeah. We're helping save the rainforest with the NFTs and reforestation in Nicaragua, so it's all good.
Yeah, positive NFTs. And I think it was Jason. Yeah, Jason. I'll just add to his comment there. It is I am the better sailor, but he did say unless Patrick has had a couple Mai Tais, then you're better. So I'll give him that one. That's probably true.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate being on the presentation.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, and you can send us a message at info@ecovillages.life too. I don't know if we mentioned how to get a hold of us.
Get a hold of us. I'm not sure if we're actually still recording anymore, but
yeah, I'm not sure when we'll get booted, but I think we're on to the next one now.
Yep. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.